This is Would Evie Drive It, a tiny little show on our channel where we let Evie judge the cars.
Would I drive a Chevy Trailblazer?
Well, if I know, but first, information explosion! We're driving a 2022 Chevy Trailblazer. The 2023 is essentially identical, though there are some new color combos.
Ooh, the yellow and white.
Yellow and white.
Let's start with emotion factor.
How do you feel driving the Chevy Trailblazer?
Ooh, I love driving a little car. I like how it handles. It's low to the ground, which for some reason makes me feel secure.
This is a perfect opportunity. You're making a hard left turn. How's that steering feel?
It feels good. It's really light steering feel.
Does it feel agile when you drive it around? Because our mountain community is nothing but curves.
Yes, it does. That's a good description. Like, I'm not sure how this would feel with its little engine on like a freeway or something, but on our windy mountain roads, it feels great.
Off the line, there's a little bit of a moment until the power really comes in because it's a small displacement turbocharged engine. But yeah, once you're moving, it's not bad. And I also found the transmission, which is 9-speed automatic, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more in a moment. I think it does a nice job. It's quietly operating in the background, delivering smooth shifts, and I think it works just fine. The Trailblazer that we have is a shockingly good handling vehicle. Like, I was really going quickly, and then you come out of corners and there's kind of not a lot of acceleration there. So it's what you call a momentum car. But yeah, I really enjoy driving this thing too, and it's good to hear that you're having the same kind of reaction. How do you find ride quality?
It is a little bit harsh on big bumps, but our roads up here are a little rough. So on smooth pavement, I think you'd have a better experience.
This is not the pinnacle of suspension technology, but I think the ride quality is, perfectly fine for the category, which is a very inexpensive category. I want to know, though, how do you feel about the style of the Chevy Trailblazer?
I really like the exterior. A white contrasting roof with this glittery blue paint. I think it looks so stylish. And there's actually a lot going on with the front, with different material textures, all the headlights, but it doesn't feel like too much.
It's a lot, but not too much.
Which is tricky, right?
Oh my gosh, that is very, very tricky. It could look overstyled, and perhaps to some eyes it does, but you're right, I think there is definitely a charm here. And what about the inside?
The inside doesn't have as much style, but it still feels unique. Like this, whatever this texture is on the dash looks very nice, and I feel like I haven't seen it.
I'm gonna call that superhero spandex.
That is precisely what it is. There's also these bronze accents, which I'm accidentally twinning, and there's stonewashed dark denim, which I feel like goes with everything. Ooh, and the 2023 model also comes in a nitro yellow metallic with a summit white roof. I think that one looks awesome. I really want to see it in person.
As I was looking at the configurator, I'm like, well, there's the Evie spec.
Right?
Uh-huh. Last question, how's visibility?
The windows are a little narrow this way, and the pillars are rather thick, but I don't know if it's exceptionally so. Over my left shoulder, I'm having a lot of trouble seeing because of that thick B-pillar, which is common for me because I'm only 5'2", and so I have to sit very forward in the vehicle.
Despite some challenges, overall, do you feel comfortable driving this thing?
I do. I would opt for blind spot warning if it doesn't come standard, but otherwise I do feel very comfortable driving this.
We'll hit more on that in a second, but overall, pretty solid emotion factor?
Yes, for sure. But is it family friendly? But is it family friendly?
Don't you mock me. I will not be mocked. Before we move on, let me briefly thank the sponsor for today's video, Flying Eyes Sunglasses. Flying Eyes eyewear is what's currently on Evie's face, and she's using that to see her way around our community without crashing into things. But not only do they make eyewear that you can wear in your day-to-day life if you have marginal vision, but they also make sunglasses that I wear in the helicopter. Flying Eyes is not like other eyewear. They're made out of a special material called Resilimide that is extremely resilient. You can bend it and do things like that, and that allows them to make super thin temples that fit under headsets or helmets with exceptional comfort. If you're ready to upgrade to aviation grade eyewear, click the link in the description below. Use the promo code Micah to save 10% on Flying Eyes sunglasses. I didn't let you say anything, but you can't say the last words.
Flying Eyes!
This is a subcompact SUV, but how do you find the space?
It seemed plenty roomy for our family. There's only 3 of us, so we don't ask a lot of our vehicles. But from shopping to taking you in the back seat, it's...
What do you mean taking me in the back seat?
Whoa!
Iguana, good to see you here. I'm going to let you cool down for a second and just point out that I fit very well in the back seats. When I adjust that driver's seats to my ideal position, I can sit really comfortably behind a lot of knee room, a lot of headroom, and my feet fit underneath the front seat because the front seats sit up high. So there's all this space. I think my only minor complaint might be that the rear seat back is a little more vertical than I prefer. But in terms of ultimate space, there's so much to work with here. And then also, there's so much practicality in the design. There's like little cubbies here and there. There's the one on the dash. There's one over by your knee there.
This center console isn't very large, but it is deep, which is helpful. And there's also this great big bin here. I couldn't even think of what to put in there because it's so large.
You could put 2 cans of Pringles in the center console, and then you could have a dipping zone. You could just fill this with ranch or queso. I'm not here to judge.
I'm gonna throw this iguana out the window.
Whee!
Oh no.
Oh, you've made editing work for mommy. Good work, sweetie. Oh, and then this little handy slot right here for the phone between the cup holders. Just a nice little thoughtful touch.
And there's enough cup holders that even when I'm riding with you, I can fit my coffee and my water in here.
My lady loves her beverages. Another area where the Trailblazer really stands out is cargo space. There are 25.3 cubic feet in the back there, which is really good for the subcompact category. You have a dual height floor, so if you need more space, drop it down low. If you want a flat load in, then you can move it up to that upper position, and that's a really nice flexible thing. We don't have rear releases back there, but you can pretty easily reach the release on the top of the seat backs and flip them forward.
Even I can reach them.
Even tiny little sweetie.
Another really cool feature is that the front passenger seat folds flat for long items.
Any thoughts about car seat installation?
The latch points are covered by some folded material, but they were very easy to access. I did have a little trouble with the high height of our seat and the low height of the opening, as well as the narrowness of the door opening.
The way the seats sit up, it makes a more comfortable seating position, but it also narrows the gap between the roof and the seat cushion. So you kind of have to finagle the seat in just a little bit. Overall, though, that's the kind of thing you don't do a ton unless you review cars. Do you review cars for a living? Well, then you might have to think about that, but otherwise, it's not that big a deal. Kiddo, how is it getting in and out of this thing?
It's pretty easy, but the door's kind of hard to open and close.
That's true. If you're a 7-year-old and you're trying to get into the back of a Trailblazer, then I hope you've got an arm workout coming because you got to use those guns. Yeah. By the way, as we're talking, I feel like we're coming out with a really positive impression of the Chevy Trailblazer. And I don't know if that was my expectation, but yeah, safety is really strong too. So 5-star overall crash test rating from the NHTSA. The IIHS rates this a top safety pick plus. So very, very safe in terms of crash. And then the active safety suite that comes standard is generous. So you have automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, standard lane keeping assist. You have teen driver, which basically creates a report card tattling on your teen driver's behavior behind the wheel, and you can lock out certain features. So as our kid gets older, that's the kind of thing that we really appreciate. And then there are 10 airbags. Not a huge vehicle, an awful lot of airbags. And you mentioned earlier that you might like blind spot warning.
I would definitely like blind spot warning.
You can get blind spot warning and cross traffic alert in a package that costs right about $350.
Nice.
And for that price, it's like, sure, yeah, I'll get blind spot warning. That makes my sweetie happy.
Yes.
All of that considered, what do you think? Is this thing family friendly?
Family friendly.
Yeah, family friendly.
But what I want to know, is it mountain friendly?
We live in the mountains, and just so you know, our standard for mountain friendliness is, does the vehicle make living in the mountains easier? Theoretically, you could live in the mountains with a Volkswagen Beetle from 1974.
And there's someone who lives here who has that.
I have seen that. It is a thing, but that doesn't necessarily make it easier. Yeah, for our version of mountain friendliness, is it going to be easier when it gets snowy up here? In terms of mountain friendliness, there are a few things working on the Trailblazer's behalf. Number one is that all-wheel drive is available on every single trim. It costs somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 depending on which trim you're adding it to. And then all-wheel drive increases ground clearance to 8 inches, which is a little bit more than the front-wheel drive version. Sometimes when it snows up here, you need a little extra clearance, so because the plows maybe haven't gone out yet, and you don't want to be plowing those roads with the front of your car. Lastly, you may have noticed we're driving the Activ trim, which is the third from the top of 4 trims. And the Activ trim has slightly more rugged tires and an off-road suspension, and I was unable to find out what that actually meant, but it's somewhat more robust. But yeah, what do you think for our purposes? Is this thing mountain friendly? I love the mountains.
I think we could make trips to the store to buy Ben & Jerry's in the snow.
Do you guys like eating ice cream in the snow? Tell us in the comments. Now that we've established that my favorite wintertime treat is still ice cream, let's move on to my favorite segment,
Sweetie Potpourri.
Diving into the potpourri, let's talk about infotainment. The standard infotainment setup is a 7-inch screen with wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. We're in a higher trim here, and we have the optional 8-inch screen.
I like that the icons are color-coded. There are shortcuts to the features you'd use most often here. There are physical buttons here that offer the home screen, back screen, forward and back. I found the infotainment interface fairly easy to navigate, and I really appreciated the color-coded icons.
Oh, and every time I mention some antiquated technology in a car, people chime in and say like, what do you mean? Of course I love having a steam-powered whatever. You'll be happy to know that this has an auxiliary in and an SD card slot. So however you ingest your music, you can probably do that with your Chevy Trailblazer.
I really like the wireless charging for the phone, especially to go with the wireless Apple CarPlay.
Also in that same region here, we've got a few different buttons to look at. This checkered flag is sport mode. I've activated sport mode. If you're feeling more sporty, that'd be what that is.
So it seems like the steering is perhaps a little bit heavier.
Yes. And what's fun is that if you look in the owner's manual, it explains that it changes how the suspension works, and I can guarantee you it doesn't, because this is not an adaptive suspension. So there was a slight disconnect between the people who write copy for Chevy and the people who make cars for Chevy. But if you want a slightly sportier feel, you can push that button. And then immediately adjacent to it, there's an all-wheel drive button. If you look at the fuel economy figures, there's one particular number, and I'm not sure if it's all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive mode that they tested it in. But I do know that if you want better fuel economy, you can turn off the all-wheel drive. That is a good segue though, sweetie. Can I tell you about some engines?
Please do.
Okay, the base engine is a 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It makes cute little horsepower numbers, and that's the fuel economy. It only comes with front wheel drive. Then there's an optional 1.3 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine that is optional on the lower trims and standard on the higher trims. It makes more power, obviously, and you can also get it with all-wheel drive. A couple interesting things. The fuel economy in the more powerful engine is actually better than the base engine.
How does that work?
I don't know, I'm not an engineer. The other interesting thing is that if you add all-wheel drive to the more powerful engine, which is the only engine you can get it with, you no longer have a CVT, you get the 9-speed automatic that we've been experiencing.
Nice.
So if I were to make a recommendation, it might be go with the all-wheel drive 1.3 liter, because oftentimes people complain about how CVTs operate. They have groaning engine operation, especially if the engines don't make a lot of power. As for fuel economy versus the competitive set, the Trailblazer performs pretty well. It's right in line with the Honda HR-V and the Kia Seltos, though surprisingly the Subaru Crosstrek, which only comes with all-wheel drive, is the more efficient choice. Sweetie,
Yes.
can I make a trim recommendation?
I've been waiting for that.
I'm going to recommend stepping up from the base LS trim to the LT trim. It costs about $2,200 more, but here's what you get. You get a 10-way driver seat with lumbar support, sliding vanity mirrors so you can pass the all-important straight pipes test, cruise control, which to me feels like an essential. You get tinted glass, roof rails, and you get smart key access, a feature that I wouldn't want to live without. Sweetie, would you want to live without it?
Darn it, I'm spoiled now. I can't live without it.
Can't live without it. To me, the LT is a really logical way to step up. I'll also add that if you want to go with the 1.3 liter engine, it's only $345 extra. More power, better fuel economy, get the 1.3 liter. If you want to fancy up your Trailblazer, you can add things like Bose audio, adaptive cruise control, automatic climate control, heated front seats, a panoramic roof, and depending on which trim, you can do the contrasting roof options. And there's some really interesting combinations there. Going back to the competitive set I mentioned, the Chevrolet Trailblazer is the cheapest base price you'll find. Yeah, you've got names like the new Honda HR-V, which we look forward to driving soon, the Kia Selts, which is a popular choice, I see them everywhere, and then the Subaru Crosstrek. And if you're curious what we thought about the Subaru Crosstrek when we drove it, you can click up here. All right, I think we've covered the bases. The real question though, would Evie drive it? Sweetie, yes, no, maybe so. Would you drive a Chevrolet Trailblazer?
Heck yeah. I like the way a small car drives. I don't want to spend a lot of money, and I want reasonable fuel economy, which is why I bought a Bronco.
Smart. Yeah, this car would make up for all the bad we're doing driving a Bronco.
And the exterior looks so good. I love the white contrasting roof. I found the infotainment, HVAC, everything was very easy to use. I would definitely drive this.
That all sounds great, but heck yeah was not one of your three options. So I'm going to disregard all of the things you just said there.
Boo!
What do you think? Is Evie crazy for saying yes to the Chevy Trailblazer? Let us know in the comment section. If you guys would like to see more of these kinds of videos where we review cars as a family, feel free to subscribe. If you're curious what we're doing between YouTube videos, you can always give us a follow over on Instagram. Family, I think we have done it. The only thing that remains is the awkward goodbye.
Ha! You're bleeding.